Hey everybody, welcome to the newest episode of The Bearded Gamer Show. Now, as always, I'm your host, The Bearded Gamer, Chris Arnone. Okay, straight into good news, bad news. So one of the pillars of BioWare is going to be leaving the company. Very sad stuff. That is Drew Karpyshyn. He's been one of their big writers for a long time. He's one of the main driving forces behind Knights of the Old Republic, the Mass Effect universe, and indeed their newest venture, Star Wars The Old Republic. He's also written some companion novels. You see the graphic here. He is going to keep writing a few companion novels, but he really wants to pursue more novel writing and some ventures outside of the video gaming world. But still, you kind of have to wonder with the guy who's been so influential in the stories of BioWare's games, which is sort of one of their hallmarks, what will it be like going forward? Now, they still have some great talents like Mac Walters on board, but, it does make one give pause and worry a little bit about, how BioWare's stories are going to be going forward without Drew. All right, some just straight up news. Can't call this good or bad because it really depends on where you stand. That is SCEA boss Jak Tretton is really downplaying the possibility of a PlayStation 4 this year and a PlayStation 4 announcement this year. Now, we've talked in the past already about, we're not going to see next generation consoles this year, maybe next year. That's a iffy, but some announcements that seems more likely. Well, he's really pushing that away. He's saying it really they're focused on the PlayStation 3 right now, and they really feel like, and this is to quote, that the Vita deserves a dedicated push from us. Now, a lot of people are familiar that the Vita's been having some troubles trying to get moving and get going in Japan, but the PS3 also had a real slow start when it got going, as did the PSP. So this isn't necessarily indicative that the Vita is failing. It's just having some trouble getting off the ground. But the North American launch is right around the corner, so we'll see how that does, especially with Uncharted Golden Abyss, which is much more of a Western game as part of that launch lineup. All right, some more good news. Well, it seems Atlus has now signed a distribution deal with Sega, at least for Japan. Now, I think this is really good news. It may just be a tidbit or a footnote for most people, but I love Atlus. They make some great games. They're really passionate about what they do, whether it be games like Catherine, the Persona series, all the different Shin Megami Tensei games. They're very passionate about what they do, and they're a small company. And so I think it's great that they're now going to be using Sega, using that larger distribution network to get their games out to a larger audience. And I'm just excited for them. They make such wonderful games, wonderful people, and the more successful they are, the happier I'm going to be. So good on them teaming up with Sega for some distribution. Maybe they'll work out something with someone in the US and in Europe to do something similar and get those games out bigger and bigger. So, all right, finish up, unfortunately, with some bad news. Now, I'm going to file this in the next chapter of Sony is somehow trying to make the PlayStation Vita worse and worse with every possible turn. They've now said that they have no plans of making PS3 or PS2 games playable on the PlayStation Vita. Now, this includes the recent PS2 classics that have been emerging on the PlayStation Network. Now, this is after we've already found out, that the PS1 playability, all the PS1 classics won't play on the Vita for a while. Now they're saying they have no plans of making the recent PS2 classics playable, like, God Hand or Maximo that have come out on PlayStation Network. And I don't understand what Sony is doing. Let's keep pulling back features, taking away features that seem like they should be obvious. Okay, Vita playing PS3 games, yeah, that's a stretch. Some people have seen it with some modding or some hacking or whatever. I don't expect that. But the PS2 classics, seriously, you need people to go out and buy these consoles because you make money on games. So you should be doing everything in your power to give people a reason to go out and buy this new portable console. And you just keep taking reasons away. I don't understand what Sony is doing with this. They need to get their heads out of their rears and get going with this. All right, enough with the news. How about some reviews? Let's go review round.
Welcome to a new Reviews Roundup, powered by Gamer Review. First up is another collection of great PS2 games rounded up into a collection for the PlayStation 3, the Jak and Daxter Collection. Matt Ashbach got his nostalgia on and said, "When playing re-releases, I tend to take off my nostalgia goggles and judge a game by modern standards," which brings us back to the review's earlier questions. Should PS3 owners play through these three games? Yes. Are the games still fun? For the most part, yes. Should I buy it? Well, that depends. It's a solid rental title and should give you a fun week, maybe two, of last-generation platforming action. However, Since the games are pretty easy and have nearly no replay value, you have to be a fan to want to own this collection. Just like the blockbuster movies that Naughty Dog was intending these games to emulate, they were great for their time, but experiencing them once is often enough. Matt gave the Jak and Daxter Collection a 7.8 out of 10. Next is the first PlayStation Vita review, the downloadable Little Deviants. Gordon Bryant took on this review and said, "Little Deviants isn't anything special on its own, but for what it's worth, I enjoyed it. We all know that it's nothing more than a glorified tech demo, and in that respect, it succeeds with gusto because after seeing everything the Vita can do, I'm excited to see how other developers implement the features shown here in deeper, more engaging games." Gordon gave Little Deviants a 6.7 out of 10. It's an Olympic year again, and you know what that means, right? Another Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games game. Alex St. Amour went for the gold and said, "At the end of the day, I can honestly say that I was pleasantly surprised with the 3DS version of Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games. Some of the minigames are throwaways, and many of the best features from the Wii version remain console exclusive, but if you're looking for an enjoyable minigame collection on the go, with a decent single-player experience and fun multiplayer options thrown into the mix, then you really can't go wrong with this trip to foggy old London." Alex gave Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games for the Nintendo 3DS a 7.0 out of 10. Here's the review you've been waiting for. The king of vehicular combat returns with Twisted Metal for PlayStation 3. Nick Pantazis revved up his engines and loaded his guns for this one and said, "Reviewing Twisted Metal has given me some of both the most frustrating and most enjoyable experiences I've had in gaming in a long time. The campaign is genuinely bad. Although I enjoyed story cutscenes, it's also horribly integrated as an essential component in a game that is made almost entirely for the excellent multiplayer. Luckily, that multiplayer is so great that it can carry almost any other faults the game has, and it's great to see a developer still supporting local play in a game that's a blast to play with friends. At the end of the day, Twisted Metal is a game I'll have a lot of fun playing for a very long time, but it was quite a chore getting to that point." Nick gave Twisted Metal a 7.5 out of 10. Be sure to read the full reviews for these and many other games on gamerreview.vgcharts.com.
So let me talk a bit about portable consoles again. And there is sort of this perception that mobile devices are really killing portable consoles. And I don't think that's 100% true. Now, I've talked a lot about this before and kind of had a soapbox for, about a month and kind of got off it for a long time. Because in many ways, the 3DS has proved some of my early predictions wrong. The 3DS is now going very, very strong. Like the 3DS for the last couple months has had some of the top-selling software in the entire industry with, Super Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7. It's really been doing very, very well. And it got started slow and it was priced too high, but after a price cut and some big first-party titles, it's doing much, much better because you gauge the health of a console not off the console sales, but off the software sales. And that's a big thing. That's why if you look at the PlayStation Portable, it sold all these units, but its software sales have always been just so poor because piracy was so prevalent on the machine. Well, now recently, George Broussard, probably messing up his name, he's a co-creator of Duke Nukem, was quoted on Twitter as saying, "The PS Vita launch feels like the last dinosaur showing up to a mammal convention." And he's very much commenting on this, he thinks that the portable console genre is dying, that it's going to die a horrible death. I think that's crap, okay? Vita's getting a slow start. Yes, I've said this before, and even though I've talked a lot about, in different news pieces, Sony doing things that are going to hurt the Vita when they should be giving it more and more features instead of taking them away, nevertheless, I think there's definitely a place for portable consoles. I have an iPhone. I've got some games on it like Infinity Blade and some tower defense games, but for the most part, things like Street Fighter or like various, core games that they put on there, I don't want to play them on my iPhone. I don't want to have to like stick my thumbs on the touchpad and pretend there's little sticks there that I can't feel. It just doesn't feel right. I don't have that same control. That my reaction time from being a gamer for 25 years doesn't transfer over nearly as well to this little touch screen. And so that's where I believe that dedicated portable gaming devices still have their purpose. Now, I say dedicated, and of course that's not entirely true. You know, the 3DS and the Vita both are going to have other multimedia properties. You can't just make a dedicated game device anymore. You know, same with PS3 and the 360. They've definitely branched out more and more and more to become all-around entertainment solutions within one box. And the portables have to do the same thing. They do have to pull people away, but they aren't phones. And yes, 20 to 25% of the portable game market is gone forever. I don't think we'll ever see a portable gaming device, dedicated, once again, so to speak, meet the levels we saw of the DS. I don't think that'll ever happen again, just because a lot of casual gamers, a lot of people like that have went over to their portable devices and they see no need to go and buy a dedicated gaming device. But for us core gamers, there's still a big difference between actually having sticks, buttons, shoulder buttons, all those things, and just a touchpad. So, you know, Mr. Broussard, you know, co-creator of Duke Nukem, well, talk about a guy who must know about dinosaurs, right? I can't take this for anything. I think it's absolute crap. I think the Vita will do well. It's going to take a while, and I think it'll help if Sony will indeed put some of these features in there that should be in there to begin with, like the PS1 Classic support, PS2 Classic support, full compatibility with PSP downloadable titles, because like I said, it's all about selling that new console, getting people who own the previous console to buy the new one, because then they'll buy the games, and that's where you make your money. But I do think it will be successful. It's a very impressive piece of technology, and I think portables going forward still have some life in them. Will they last forever? That's hard to say. I can't make that prediction. But do they have strength right now? Absolutely. 3DS is doing very well, and I think the Vita will indeed find its stride at some point. So, all right, enough with my soapbox for now. We'll see you guys next time.